Greetings and welcome once again to Aspects of Balear, brought to you from a storm-battered United Kingdom. We're going to continue with our history of Israel in its three-stranded aspect: God, land and people. In session 2 we looked at the Genesis narrative, or more correctly, a quick view of it. So we're going to carry on in this manner, still looking very much at the Eden narrative. The narrative, of course, as we said, is an etiological history rather than a hard, solid, modern version of history, attempting to cover the three areas that we spoke about earlier. The opening and closing chapters of the Bible contain references to the tree of life, namely Genesis 2-3 and Revelation 22. It's important before we proceed to have a look at the whole aspect of the tree of life. The tree has caused much attention, and particularly due to its presence in Revelation. Dietrich Bonhoeffer emphasizes the tree of life's centrality to the creation account by stating this: the whole story moves towards its end in these verses, namely Genesis chapter 3, verses 22 to 24. Indeed, it becomes plain that the whole story has really been about this tree. It's rather interesting, isn't it? The centrality of the tree in the story. I think it might be just worth pointing out, before we proceed any further, that the national symbol of Israel is not Magen David, as most people seem to think it is. The Magen David appears on the flag of Israel, and as you probably know, it is traditionally the device that King David wore on his shield. However, the national symbol of Israel is actually the menorah, and outside the Knesset there's a very large menorah to emphasize this. And the menorah is generally considered to be a representative of the tree of life, the tree of life that gives life to the land and the people from God. We're going to see this three-stranded cord running throughout all this teaching, which I hope you'll bear with me, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying sharing it with you, because it will take several weeks. So, the tree of life, let's think about it as a symbol first, shall we? The academic study of religion over the last half century or more has been massively influenced by the work of Mircea Eliade, who died in 1986 and was very influential in thought, particularly in, I'm going to call it representations. Semiotics, possibly, but a little bit more, because he worked more on the idea of spiritual and psychological understandings of these things. Eliade made the seminal comment that every microcosm of humanity has a sacred centre. Now, we concentrated, didn't we, last week on Gan Eden as a sacred space and the connotations that moved away from that. And understanding Gan Eden as a sacred space and understanding Ha-Adam, the Adam, as a priestly figure helps set the whole God-land people trichotomy in its essential setting. So, every microcosm of humanity has a sacred space. Such sacred centres are not of necessity geographical locations in the sensible world. Rather, they're points of intersection between heaven, earth, and hell, where communications among these realms become possible. The notion has similarities to the idea of what horizons were, or portals, or liminal spaces in thought across the ancient Near East. He also stated that sacred symbols, those that mark the centre, have the effect of creating nostalgia for, I'll use a posh expression, the prelapsing period, or shall we say, Paradise Lost. A yearning for Paradise Lost. Milton wrote a great poem, which I'm sure most of you've read at one time or another. Sacred symbols universally mark an intimate connection between universal life and the salvation of mankind. So the tree of life, its time, is very important for our understanding of the whole Eden narrative, and it's also important for us to understand the history of Israel. So Eliade, with a nod to semiotics, states that a symbol serves to reveal an entire reality where words alone cannot describe it. There are many things like this, aren't they? There are some things that, no matter how eloquent or how much of a wordsmith we are, or I like to presume that we are, there are some things that words really can't describe. I think it's quite interesting. I mean, think about a sunset, for instance. Do you look at sunset? Do you watch a sunset? I like the word I choose to use actually behold it, because there's something awesome about it. But I don't think you can really describe the experience of a sunset in a beautiful place. And sun up and sundown in Hebrew thought, of course, mark turning points, don't they? Shabbat starts when the sun goes down, and that's a symbol. And when sun rises, that's the end of Shabbat. It's a new day, it's a new life. And symbols can be contained in words. When we mention the cross, or we say the cross, we immediately think of the crucifixion of Yeshua, don't we? We don't think of the cross that we use in mathematics. That's not the first thought that comes into mind. So symbols mean an awful lot, and they convey far more than the word that describes them. Words are great, but they've got limitations. With words also, we also remember far more of what we say than what we hear, and so on. So a tree, or the tree, may be viewed as an archetypal symbol and is found in religions all around the world. Sometimes it's depicted as a cosmic tree, a tree of life, if you like, a tree that holds up the universe, and to climb that tree is a way of ascending heaven. So if we look at the story of the fruit of the tree of life, by partaking of the fruit of that tree, that was a way of climbing into heaven, or that man would find a godlikeness in himself or become godlike, or to put in more simple terms, he would actually become immortal. So the tree of life is a symbol of immortality. Immortality is a word that we flip about quite casually, in my opinion. When we speak of the immortal, we immediately think of God. When we say God, we mean the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or his other self-identity, the God of Israel. The Greeks and others had a whole range of immortals. Ranks of angels, demons, demigods, human beings who became gods, all this. And the whole ideas of heaven and hell all deal, in one sense, one way, shape or form, about the question of eternal life or immortality. So the tree and the tree of life, as Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, quite rightly, is probably the central point, the focus within the story. A symbol is often a common object imbued with a new meaning. It breaks open in immediate reality into something that is maybe more slightly abstract. Certainly, I'm sure that many of you have visited Eretz Israel, and I'm sure there have been places where you've seen various things that impacted you greatly, and they provide a memory or a focal point or a locus for prayer, meditation, or a great boost in faith. Walking on the road to Emmaus, possibly, for you. Visiting the Kotel, the desert, I've always found an extremely special place. There's a great closeness to God in the wilderness. So all these things, all these symbols, but the tree in particular, the tree of life, because the tree bears fruit, doesn't it, as well. The tree is very important. So the tree of life. So the image of the tree came to express everything in faith systems as being preeminently real and sacred. But you see, trees are great, aren't they? And in the ancient Near East, and in Israel in particular, if you look at other references to trees, of which the tree of life is the archetypal tree, it represents all kinds of things, doesn't it? Youth, a sapling, growing up like a sapling, growing like a mighty oak, and all these kind of things. So it expresses life, continuity of life, youth, strength, immortality, and wisdom. And most people knew that trees lived a lot longer than they did. So trees, very important, tree of life. So in life and in hope, man desires the divine, something only rarely accessible to demigods or self-appointed rulers, heroes, or privileged individuals. The idea of the pharaohs in Egypt were divine. Alexander the Great, story about him, mighty warrior, young man, conquered all the world as far as he understood it to be. When he arrived in Thebes in Egypt, he proclaimed himself God and dressed on formal occasions as any one of the pantheon of the great gods. When he got to the shores of the Indian Ocean on the far side, Aristotle says that he knelt down and wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. But this demigod, age 33, died 30 or 33, I think he's 30, better. in Babylon, of all places. But the tree, as I said, the tree is so very important in the history of Israel because it represents everything in Israel's history. The tree of life, God's tree of life. For Christians, a sacred centre, sacred place, is not a place in the sensible world. Some people think Jerusalem is, some people think the Temple Mount is, and various other things. Rather, the tree of life has been turned into a cross in Christianity. Jesus Christ, Yeshua, Messiah, often symbolised by a wooden cross upon which he died, and also widely employed to symbolise both the fall of Adam in the Garden of Eden then, and the redemption of mankind through crucifixion. So the tree of life is a very important thing to understand the history of Israel from its beginning to the present day, and to understand that Yeshua is a symbol, if you want, in effect, is the tree of life, because life came from the death and resurrection of Yeshua. We'll take a break there.
As a musician, I can tell you that timing is everything. The beat of the drum, the pluck of the strings, the tinkling of the ivories, or the strum of the guitar. If you want the music to sound right, then you have to play in time. And if you're joining with others, everyone needs to play at the right moment. You know, it's the same with what God is doing. Our Creator is playing a melody, and the theme of the song is protecting His children. But like any orchestra, it's important that as we join in, that we too get the timing right. You see, timing is everything. And now is the time to become part of the orchestra that God is assembling. Our God-given purpose is to support and stand with the Jewish people. This is the greatest song you could ever sing and the greatest music you could ever play. Won't you join with the band, with Ezra International, as we join with what God is doing? Remember, timing is everything, and that time is now.
Welcome back. In Christian literature and art, the tree has become an extension, or erroneously, any number of other things. As I said, to Christianity, the symbol is uniquely based on the observed historical life, death, and resurrection. And integral to the Christian tradition, of course, is Christ's descent into hell to save Adam, and by extension, his fallen race. You won't find that exactly in the Descensus, in the Petrine correspondence, but you will find it in earlier writings. So, how does true life fit into Jewish thought? Past, present, and future, shall we say? The loss of access to the tree of life and its fruit made death an inevitability. As part of the lacunae, that's a whole story if you want, regarding what happened to Eden following the expulsion, the fate of the tree of life is unknown. Isn't that interesting? However, the motive of the tree of life did not remain absent in Jewish thought. The Hebrew term, Etz Chaim, is often used to refer to the Torah. It's a popular name for synagogues and Jewish schools, as well as one of the titles of the major works of Jewish mysticism by Rabbi Chaim Vital. The tree of life is a symbol in Israel's worship, firstly within the tabernacle and later the Jerusalem temple. The symbol is incorporated into the design of these sacred spaces, featuring many symbols of the Garden of Eden, and in particular the menorah in the form of a stylized tree. Wisdom literature employs the imagery of the tree of life many times, but let me give you some examples. She, wisdom is always she, by the way, in Ivrit. She, wisdom, is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold fast onto her are called blessed. That's Proverbs 3:18. So wisdom, and wisdom is the fear of God, isn't there? And the proper behaviour, the ethics that we talked about. Yeah, the writer of the Proverbs makes that very clear. Hold on to the wisdom of God and be blessed. The fruit of the righteousness is a tree of life, and he who is wise wins souls. Proverbs 11:30. That is my favourite one. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. So really, all the Proverbs are all pointing to one thing. I'll just finish with this one. A soothing tongue is a tree of life, but perversion crushes the spirit. And then in 4 Maccabees, which is a quote from Proverbs 3:18, he recounted to you Solomon's proverb, there is a tree of life for those who do his will. So at times, a very important thing in the history of Israel. As I said, when looking at the history of Israel, we're not just looking at the hard geographical and historical facts in as far as they be established. We're looking at the relationship of God, land, and people. So there we go. The tree of life in the wisdom literature. Now, let's enjoy ourselves a little bit and see what it says about the tree of life in the Jewish writings in between the close of the Old Testament canon and the New Testament canon. Many of these I'm going to share with you, appearing in the Apocrypha, or at one time rather up for inclusion in the canon. So, there's a little corpus of writing called the Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs, considered to have been written about 100 years before Yeshua, and they were preserved in Greek text, containing a testament in the name of each of the 12 sons of Israel. Each one recounts his life and gives ex eventu prophecy to his children. Ex eventu means after the fact. Only testaments Levi and Naphtali have parallels in the Dead Sea Scroll. The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, originally a Jewish document that's been interpolated, messed about with, improved on by Christian writers in the 1st century. The Testament of Levi looks forward to a new priesthood and the tree of life being restored. And he shall open the gates of paradise, and he shall remove the threatening sword against Adam, and he shall give to his saints to eat from the tree of life, and the spirit of holiness shall be upon them. So what was this Jewish writing actually about? What was he talking about, the fiery sword and the cherubim being removed, the release of the tree of life? It's a hope. It's a hope for the future. It's a hope for a paradise lost being returned. A relief from the post-lapsarian to the pre-lapsarian. Paradise restored. The apocryphal for Ezra, or to Ezra's, the Jewish text or the Greek text, is ascribed to Ezra the scribe and priest of the 5th century. Scholarship places it probably between 70 and to 80, and 100 few years before Yeshua. And it's rather the same idea, this great yearning for restoration, for God, for the nation. God, land, people, the sacred space. Because it's for you, paradise is opened, the tree of life is planted, the age to come is prepared, plenty is provided, a city is built, rest is appointed, goodness is established, and wisdom perfected beforehand. Notice how wisdom, the tree of life, seem to run along together. Wisdom, the fear of God, is beginning of true wisdom. The root of evil is sealed up from you. Illness is banished from you, and death is hidden. Hell has fled, and corruption has been forgotten. Sorrows have passed away, and in the end, treasure of immortality is made manifest. These Second Temple period writings, as we call them, appear many times, referenced, what alluded to, in the New Testament. So let's visit New Testament, shall we? Well, as we know, the tree of life only appears directly in Revelation. Chapter 2, verse 7, 22 to 14:19, largely referencing a prophecy of Ezekiel. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on the banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. Every month they will bear, because the water from the sanctuary, remember the water in the garden, flows to them, and their fruit will serve for food, and their leaves for healing. Rather amazing, that, isn't it? So, there are several other areas we can look about how this has been central, the whole idea of Israel, God, land, and people. But when we get into the establishment of what we refer to as the Orthodox Church, Church of Rome as it became, the people and land thing really do start to be absorbed into allegorical interpretations and not really helpful. I mean, Bonaventure, for instance, taught that the medicinal fruit of the tree is Christ himself. Albertus Magnus taught that the Eucharist, the body and the blood of Christ, are the tree of life, and so on. And we probably can leave it about where that is. Sufficient to say that before the canon of the New Testament was established, many other documents were found that were referred to as Gnostic texts, which were always disregarded until the last 50 years or so, when it was realised these were just texts from alternative understandings of the gospel, different understandings of Messiah. So in a text called Origins of the World, the tree of life is expressed as providing life for the innocent. The secret book of John, which is very important, the tree of life is to be feared. Its roots are described as being bitter, and its branches are death, because there's obedience involved of trying to reach to it. And we could go on, but sufficient to say for our session today, it's important, before we move along, to really know, understand, and appreciate the centrality of the tree of life for Israel, God, land, and people. So as ever, until the next time, God be with you until we meet again.